All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a brand new edition of the Chris Stevens Writes YouTube show. You know who I am, and of course, I got a guest on today. This brother and I have been musically inclined, social media followers for well over a decade now. Tell you how much we do, how often we do this Stevie Wonder thing, which we're going to do today. When he was working for the SoCal News Group, we did Music in My Mind. When he was with the Memphis Commercial Appeal, we did Talking Book and Intervisions. And today, on Monday, July 22nd, the 50th anniversary of probably the one in the archives that people really don't discuss during the classic era. We're going to discuss it today. We're discussing Fulfillingness First Finale. It is my honor, my privilege to welcome my brother in journalism and music, Nets beat writer for Newsday, Mr. Evan Barnes. EB, man, thank you for coming on, man.
CJ, you are incredible with the intros, brother. I am like just sitting here thinking, we're just gonna start talking, but you set it up so well. I'm like, wow, wow, you are a true friend of the crown, as they say.
Thank you. I appreciate it, man. And thank you for coming on. So, as we said, we're going to talk Fulfillingness First Finale. And my first impressions of that album is, it's the one that we're talking about Stevie Wonder's classic period. We do that quite often on this channel. So from 71 to 76, Stevie just put out an incredible amount of work that I don't think will ever be touched by anybody, no matter what the streaming sales will tell you.
Even this person right here, let's be clear. Even this person who we both hold in high regard, Prince. Even Prince would say, bless his soul, Stevie Wonder's Genius Run, hard to touch by anybody.
Absolutely. So Fulfillingness First Finale. This album, to me, it's darker, and there's a reason for that darkness, something that we've talked about in prior episodes. But if you're not familiar, Stevie came across a car crash in the summer of 1973. This is when, shortly before Intervisions, the album dropped and Higher Ground was tearing up the charts. So when you think about it, we could have lost Stevie Wonder when he was 23. And coming out of the coma and different things, he had lost his sense of smell. He had even lost his sense of taste for a while. And if as a visually impaired person, shouts out to our guy Bomani Jones of the Stevie Ain't Blind Society. So if you still believe that Stevie just lacks sight, losing your sense of smell and taste could be kind of hard to deal with. So coming out of that, he's 23 years old. He's already broken up with Sarita Wright, who's still there's still going to be a song on this album that we'll talk about that alludes to their relationship. And just feels like Fulfillingness First Finale was just like a sort of awakening for Stevie, even though it meant, just a darker album. And of course, this was the last album that Malcolm Cecil and Bob Margouleff, who had helped him program the synthesizers, had worked with him on. So it was like this was the last of the really spacey, earthy Stevie sound that was on those synthesizers at that point, because Songs in the Key of Life about 2 years later sounded totally different. And we'll probably be doing that in 2026. But today we're talking about Fulfillingness First Finale. So
I'm already looking forward to that, by the way. That we might need to carve out like a good hour and change to go into that record. Good.
We might need to do parts of that.
Yeah. One
it's
part
so
for
massive.
each album. One part for each album, and maybe the EP at the end of album 2.
Yeah, it is so massive. But yeah, Ev, just give me your thoughts on what your first impressions are when you listen to Fulfillingness First Finale.
All right, so before I do that, I want to take you back to when I first listened to this record last decade. Thanks to Spotify, I was able to kind of, dive into the catalog for the first time around the 2010s. So I was in my 20s when I first heard this record. Like you said, a darker record. It is a darker, sadder record, a much more moodier record. I was kind of surprised because you obviously take Intervisions, which I hold as my favorite Stevie record. You take a record like that sounds so hopeful, optimistic. Higher Ground is on there. You hear all the social commentary on that record, and then you hear this record, and you're like, "Wow, something changed. Something changed." Where this album, because Stevie was cranking albums out like every year. So to go from Intervisions to this album, Fulfillingness First Finale, which is so much darker, you mentioned it, the coma, the accident, that obviously changed so much in him. Dealing with, obviously, him and Sarita Wright's, the end of their, marriage, not the end of their relationship, but the end of their marriage. I'm sure that probably played a role in his mind. But just hearing it, I was like, wow, this is a very a dark record. And I thought about it today. It's almost like a departure record in a way that, like, say, Prince's Parade is. Like, Prince's Parade doesn't sound like a lot of the records in the catalog in that 80s run of Prince. It's very, very distinct. Now, granted, that's a bit happier in some ways, still sad, but you understand what I mean? Like, it's a different sound. There's a different feel of that record. And so is Fulfillingness First Finale. And yet, just like Parade, this album also has a #1 hit on there, which is funny because this record would be like so moody, so sad. You don't think, how's it going to translate to be a pop success? Well, it had 2 top 5 pop hits and a #1 pop hit. You know, one of those one #1. By the way, can I just show this real quick?
Please do. Oh my God! Look, ladies and gentlemen, that is his parents' copy of Fulfillingness First Finale. Like like you can tell that's from 1974. Just take a look at it. Tell them what it is, man.
Yeah. So this literally, in 2017, while I was digging through my mom's crates or whatever, I didn't realize she had these records. I found Intervisions and Fulfillingness First Finale in there, and I was like, whoa. So it was my mom and dad's copy. This is it, straight out of 1974.
Look at it, y'all. Look at it.
I mean, look, you got CD, you got, all this great art. It actually might be my favorite. Like, I love the artwork on Intervisions, but the artwork on here is amazing. Like, you got the Grammys right here, the keys. I'll show the back. I'll show the back of it. Like, you see the back, all the great artwork on there. Unfortunately, if you're listening to this, you might want to check this out on video because this is pretty cool. I can probably show the gate. Well, the gatefold is just the words, but like the gatefold, like as people who love vinyl, CJ, like we just love seeing this kind of stuff. Like this.
Absolutely.
When I saw this, I was just like, whoa, like this is such a uniquely cool, interesting piece of work, just artwork. Like you want to just almost hang this somewhere.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
So we could talk about that a lot, but man, just when I got this, I was like, wow, okay. And it let me know a little bit more of my mom and my dad's music taste. Like I'm listening to Stevie. I'm excited about Stevie, but they were like, we were there. We were there when this was a thing. So you might want to, not pay some respect, but just appreciate this. So it's a really special record. I'm gonna just set this up here.
Yes. So everybody can see it.
I'm gonna set it right there. I don't know if you can see it well, but we're gonna have it right there as we talk over our shoulder here. But yeah, man, this record is just it's a lot. And should we get into it?
Yes, we should. All right, so I think I want to skip around a little bit because there's one song in particular that I want to talk about that is the final in the trilogy of Stevie Wonder versus Richard Milhouse Nixon. And I mean, we talked about this on previous episodes. We talked about how Big Brother was sort of like the intro, and he's Mr. Know-It-All has strains of talking about Nixon, but this You Haven't Done Nothing is a direct shot. There's no doubt about who Stevie Wonder's talking about. This is the 1974 version of Kendrick Jumping On Like That. This is absolutely him talking to this Nixon, and I joke all the time because that song came out. I mean, obviously, this album came out July 22nd, and Richard Nixon resigned August 9th. So Nixon barely had 2 weeks. he heard that song. He heard that song playing in Chocolate City for 2 weeks and couldn't take it. Said, "Okay, I'm out. I'm done." He won. So when you think about when you mentioned the social commentary and how Stevie just had a pointed way of getting his point across, what is it about You Haven't Done Nothing that really sticks out in your opinion?
I think it's just the directness of it. I mean, he's basically coming out full blazing, basically saying, instead of like hinting at it, he's coming out saying, you haven't done nothing. You haven't really listened to what we're going through. Let's just start off with the first words. We are amazed, but not amused by all the things that you do, though much concerned, but not involved with decisions that are made by you. But we are sick and tired of hearing your song, telling how you are going to change right from wrong. Because if you really want to hear our views, you haven't done nothing. I mean, that's a direct indictment of Richard Nixon and his policies. And I think it's just showing you that Stevie, even amidst his sadness on this record, he can still give you that social commentary that is pointed, clear, and just, makes his point. And it's kind of like one of the more upbeat songs on the record. It's the lead single, I believe. But it's not, it's not really a dance record. Like, you can't, or maybe you can dance to it. I don't know. I wonder if they were dancing to this record in 1974. Like, yeah, we dancing on Richard Nixon right now. Maybe it is like Not Like Us.
Yeah, it could be.
Maybe like, let me see. It was number one on the week of November 2nd, 1974. Nixon's gone from the White House. He resigned. But imagine you hear this song, you're like, hey, doo-doo-wop, da-ba-da-da, doo-doo-wop, hey. But it's
I had to bust out the robot because who's doing backgrounds on there? Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5.
By the way, what a flex. Like, this record probably might be the first of this. I don't know if it's the first, but it's the clear one on the classic period where it's like, who's on this record? Like,
yes,
Stevie flexed on this record with the Jackson 5. Now, we're going to get into some other people he had on this record, but imagine you have the Jackson 5 doing ad-libs, doo-doo-wop. Not even a hook, not even anything else. You're going to do ad-libs. How much of a flex is that?
It's one that only a select few at the time could have gotten away with. Stevie, probably Marvin. That's about it.
Yeah, like, I'm trying to look and see, like, I don't know if Intervisions had like the level of flex in this way, and I don't think so. And then I know for sure that Talking Book did not have it. I mean, Talking Book, I think, had Jeff Beck on there. And of course, Jeff Beck is a monster. But like, the flex of having on the background vocal, you know who I'm going to get? I'm going to get a group that was one of the hottest groups in the world 4 years earlier, who had kind of, lost a little bit of their mainstream spark. And I'm going to be like, why don't y'all come sing on this record? And it went to number one. And it gave them a chance to kind of get that number one success a little bit more in 1974. So, I mean, like, come on, man. That's you got the Jackson 5 singing on your grave doing ad-libs. That's like, if we're using the Kendrick parallel, that's basically like DJ Mustard, who we all, know will shape the sound of the West Coast. It's like, you know what? I'm going to give you this to dance to. And I'm going to get credit for it and be like, all right. Or maybe it's like DeMar DeRozan and Russell Westbrook dancing at the Not Like Us concert.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. There's so much to like about that record, and another track that I wanted to talk about starting off with is Stevie really, we talked about that heightened sense of awareness in the beginning, because I mean, of course, he almost died the year before. And when you get a song like Heaven is 10 zillion light years away, it literally just it's a special record because he addresses atheism in that record, agnosticism, and spirituality in a way that I don't think anybody else has done since, honestly.
No, and I kind of want you to go on that a little bit more, because for me, it's a spiritual record, but it's questioning your faith, but it's also leaning on your faith. It's exploring it. I kind of want you to go in there more, because I got something to add to that. But like, what do you think about that as somebody who understands like this idea of like faith in R&B music, but the questioning of it in such a very blatant way?
And it was very blatant, because when you think about it, you didn't have people in 1974 openly saying, "Where is your God?" Like that, that was for some people that might have been veering off into Satanism or satanicism or whatever you want to call it. But it was just the way that he came about it. He just came at it from an angle of, we got so much going on. Why must my color black make me a lesser man? And I thought this world was made for all of us to live, and he loves us all. And it's just like Stevie, he just gives all the questions that you need, and then he gives the answers too. That's what my God tells me. He lives inside of me. And I say it's taken him so long because we've got so far to come. It's just like it was questioning spirituality and religion in a way that was like, okay, I would say Jesus Children of America did the record before. It just wasn't as upbeat. Jesus Children of America was a heat rock. Like it was 1973 Kirk Franklin, basically. So the Heaven is 10 zillion light years away is Stevie saying, I'm gonna slow this down for y'all, because I don't think y'all got it on Jesus Children of America, but I'm gonna slow it down for y'all so y'all can understand where I'm coming from. And I'm just gonna say Heaven is 10 zillion light years away because we just have not made that trek. And it's interesting because when you put the cover up, that piano is a staircase to heaven, actually.
Let's zoom in on that just for the audience here.
So if you
You're
look
right.
closely, you'll
You're
see
right.
the piano keys are literally just ascending up through the clouds and past the sun to heaven. So
Wow.
whoever the artist is on that record, whoever did the artwork on that probably should have won an award of some kind if they never did, because that probably is Stevie's best cover, hands down.
I think you're right about that. And by the way, that is phenomenal. Like, I never thought of that way as far as the piano keys leading to heaven. That's very well done on your part. Great observation. You're right, man. I think this song is such a, I wrote down now in my notes, it's a meditative gospel song. It's almost like, it's not a gospel song of praise or worship. I'm contemplating the world around me. And I hear the cries of people saying, you know, where are you, God? Like, we're still going through racism. We're still going through these issues. And he's just basically trying to say, I hear you. I see you. I validate you. Because he could have easily just been like, y'all trip, you know, God is still the answer, whatever. But he's giving them a voice to say, I hear you. And as you said, he does give an answer, but it feels like a way of like, well, brother, this is what I try to hold on to because I'm with you. Well, sister, I'm with you. But this is what I'm feeling right now. And I think about when the chorus goes like, but in my heart, I can feel it, feel his spirit. It's almost like trying to, like, as we say in church, kind of praise your way through the pain, right? Yes. You're in pain, but you're trying to praise your way through it. And then it just, the third verse, I was listening to it just now, the third verse of that song where he says, I can't say that heaven is 10 zillion light years away, but if so, let all be pure at heart just to walk her righteous streets, I pray. Let God's love shine within to save our evil souls. For those who don't believe will never see the light. It kind of is like, it goes from this questioning, this concern to saying, I can't give up my faith. I can't give up what I believe in. It's like saying, I still want to believe and I still have to believe, but I understand the concerns that people have. And I think Stevie is so great at relating to people. Like, here's this person who is 23, 24 years old, writing, producing this record. And yet he has the maturity to see this wider picture in a way that doesn't feel optimistic, but it feels very realistic, you know? And it's very much, I understand you. I see you. And that's something that a lot of people can't do as older folks, much less somebody who's, 23, 24 years old,
Yeah, it just tells you so much about how some folks are just a little more advanced than others. And Stevie just had a level of understanding of the human condition that most 23 or 24-year-olds do not have. Like we could talk about his meditative thoughts on relationships and how he viewed women all day long. We've done that before. Like even for 1970, even for the 1970s, when everybody was trying to, it was a sexual revolution. Everybody was going for what they knew, but Stevie at the same time, he still understood that you still needed to relate to someone as a human being, even if that was your aim. So, you can say that about a lot of R&B at the time, but Stevie just, had a special way of connecting with women that just, I don't think is going to be challenged by anybody else. It's just a different part of his, and like I said, just at 23, 24 years old, he just understood the human condition better than anybody else.
He did. He really did. I think Bomani Jones brought up once that he said Curtis Mayfield was his pick for the best artist that wrote for women. And when I listened to Curtis, obviously I could agree with that. I think Stevie is just as good because you can hear how and we'll probably talk about it on here. Like, Stevie has a way of talking to women that is very much relatable. Even though he wants what he wants, and there's a song on here where he talks about what he wants. He is very relatable in that I'm not seeing you as just an object of desire, but I see you as a person who is, someone worth desiring. And I think part of that was obviously his collaboration with Sarita Wright, obviously his writing partners, the background vocalist that he chose. There's a tenderness in Stevie that is very evident when he talks about women. So it's a very interesting dynamic he brings.
Absolutely. So that song that Evan is talking about, that's the other pop top 5, and it went number 1 on the R&B charts in 1974. And I think it's the first time in the canon of Stevie Wonder up to that point that he talked about anything that could be remotely considered sexual, and that is Boogie on Reggae Woman. Like there's not too much to say when you get into the lyrics of it, and it's interesting because I don't think there's a tinge of reggae anywhere in the record, but
no. You're wondering to yourself, like, Stevie, you're talking about reggae, but there ain't no reggae groove. Like when you listen to what's that song he did on Hotter Than July?
Master Blaster.
That's it. Clearly, that song is like trying to be a reggae groove. This song, this is more funk. This is more Stevie. This ain't no reggae. It ain't even boogie. Like it ain't even what people call boogie. Like, but it jams though.
Yes,
it jams.
Yeah, and I mean the lyrics themselves. I mean, he talks about, I could see us in the raw under the stars above, and it's like, I bet people were shocked, like, little Stevie Wonder, he does more with that harmonica. Wow. So it's just interesting that even though that song doesn't, I don't know where people rank it on their personal Stevie catalog. I don't have it super high, but it's still an important record from the space of Stevie letting people understand that, yes, I am this genius musician, who you guys can marvel at because I can't see anything. Yes, I have this social awareness, but at the same time, I'm a human being just like you.
I got needs just like you. Like Marvin Gaye comes out with, Let's Get It On in 73. Stevie Wonder's like, okay, Boogie on Reggae Woman. I mean, let's get into one of these lyrics real quick. I like to reggae, but you dance too fast for me. I'd like to make love to you so you can make me scream.
Whew.
I mean, like you said, I like to see you in the raw under the stars above. Like Stevie's making it plain. He's making it plain what he wants. Like, I want you.
Yes, but at the same, and that's another record that Marvin ended up dropping a couple years later. But I think the amazing part about all of that is it's not crass. And I mentioned this on previous episodes that I've done solo, that songwriters in the 70s just had a way of getting to the point in a sly, cheeky kind of way. Because I don't know if you saw this episode or not, but when I came to the realization that Voyage to Atlantis had a double meaning, I was like, damn, they slick.
I might need to go back and listen to that because I just thought that was a beautiful love song.
Oh, it is. But once you realize what Atlantis is and the voyage of it, it's like,
look, man, they were some nasty dudes in the 70s, but they can make it sound so compelling and good.
Yes.
Like, come on, man. But yeah, you're right, man. Stevie could get nasty with it. Like, he was nasty, but like you said, it's not crass. It's direct. Don't get it wrong. It's not like using food or water or something as like an analogy. He's saying, look, I want you in bed right now, but it's a way that's like sly and still flirty and still clever. And as I said with You Haven't Done Nothing, it's one of the more upbeat songs on the record, right? Yeah. It's the closest thing to a dance song on this record. Like, there ain't that much dancing on this record, but that song, you can imagine kind of Stevie in his head, like, I see you over there. I want to dance with you, but I also want to take you home. Like, we all can relate to that. And again, Stevie being relatable,
Yeah, and then we get to the more even though it's very blunt, Boogie on Reggae Woman still can be considered a tender record, but I think the most tender of it all is Too Shy to Say, because that's just that's classic up to that point Stevie Wonder. Like it's very bare bones. I think it's basically just him on the piano. I think even a little synthesizer in the background. That's it, and he's just talking about how he wants to fly away with this woman until there's nothing else left to do. But he's too shy to say it. And that too can be relatable for a lot of people who, you come into your own at a certain point, you know who you like, you know what you like, but at the same time, it's like, wow, this person has me just like tongue tied. and Stevie did that in such a way on Too Shy to Say that it's just like, it's just so endearing.
Yeah, I'm gonna just read this real quick. You make me smile, you make me sing, you make me feel good's everything. You bring me up when I've been down. It only happens when you're around. And I can't go on this way with it stronger every day. but being too shy to say that I really love you. I mean, again, Stevie is
Mm,
a poet, but he's
yeah.
also so direct in these things. It's like he says it in a way that we all can relate to, but he says it in a way that's like, dang, you're special. Like you get it. And I think when you see those words, it's just like, wow, we can relate to that. Like who hasn't been with somebody where it's like, I want to tell you how I really feel about you, but I'm scared to say it because I don't know what's going to happen next. I've been there. And I think what Stevie does in this song is it's so sparse that you just hear the yearning in his voice. You hear the yearning.
Yes.
And let's talk about that for a second. Stevie isn't just an all-time great singer with an all-time great voice. He knows how to use that voice that's so silky and syrupy, but also can make it sound so like drenched in yearning and desire that it feels so tinged with it. Like it's one thing to just say those words, but he can just squeeze them out when you say it
Hmm.
and make it so
Yeah.
smooth that you know exactly what he's saying and you feel what he's saying when he sings it. That is a gift to know how to sing that without making it so cheesy or cliche. You know, it's the way he sings it, right? It's so, like you said, it's very basic instrumentation. The voice stands out, and it's like the nerves, the desire, it's all there.
It's it's perfect, Stevie. And then of course there's another sort of "How Do I Get to You" record, and it's funny because we talk about Luther Vandross making songs his own all the time, and he did the same with this one. But the original is still just as good, and we will tell you why. But of course, we're talking about "Creeping," by the way. Of course, if you have not heard the Luther Vandross segue from Brenda Russell's "If Only for One Night" into his version of "Creeping," it's on the "Night I Fell in Love" album. If you're not a Luther fan, just go listen to that. And Luther has it set up to the point where you can just play "If Only for One Night" right into "Creeping," and you will just be amazed at just Luther's musical genius. Can't wait for that documentary, by the way. But yeah, "Creeping" from Stevie. We know who's on the backgrounds of that record because they had a really great history together. And I'm gonna let Evan take it from here.
Loving you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to do the rest. I'm not going to. I'm going to sound more like Eddie Murphy on Nutty Professor. But Minnie
Mm-hmm.
Riperton, another flex. Again, this is before Minnie Riperton blew up later, and I have to just check this before we got on here. But "Loving You" was a number one hit in April '75.
Mm-hmm.
So she wasn't a number one hit yet. She didn't have a number one hit yet. But Stevie had worked with Minnie Riperton on the "Perfect Angel" record, which came out in May '74, right before this record. So they had a working relationship. And so Minnie Riperton singing on this song. Now, of course, it's a flex because 50 years later, we adore Minnie Riperton. We adore
Mm-hmm.
her voice. Her voice is so recognizable. And of course, we'd be remiss not to say we also love that her daughter, Maya Rudolph, is a genius in her own right in
Yes.
comedy and acting. But Minnie Riperton on this song, she adds just the right amount of touch on this record.
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
such a whew, when she comes in on that hook, man, let me get to that hook because it's just like, ooh, on the beach, we're sitting, hugging, squeezing, kissing. Why must it be that you always creep into my dreams? I mean, it's such a beautiful duet right there. Like she doesn't sing the whole song when she comes in right there on those choruses, and it almost feels like you're getting this dreamlike sense of this woman in your ear singing the same
Yeah.
thing that you're thinking. Like that just hit me right now. I didn't write that down in my notes here, but just like
That is a hell of an observation, man. Because when she comes in on "Love is so up," and I mean, because I didn't realize it until I started, my Stevie deep dive around 2004, and then when the first time I listened to "Creeping," and I was like, "That's Minnie Riperton. That's Minnie Riperton." And then she just comes in that spot. "Love is so amazing. Guess you." It was like, man, like you said, that is perfect. She just came in right in the point where Stevie's dreaming, and this woman is like, "I'm here." It's brilliant. It's just brilliant.
ooh, that's a great songwriting method of like, I don't just want you to sing background vocals. It's going to literally sound like I'm dreaming of you. And imagine you're closing your eyes. Let's Stevie being blind, of course, can't see it. So he's singing this song about this woman, and then you hear her voice in your head as you're singing it. It's like, wow, that is a great, great arrangement. That's a great arrangement. And then on top of it, it's like they got these synths playing behind them, the Tonto synths that that Stevie was known for. It just feels like a dreamlike song. It just feels like a dreamlike experience where you're kind of like in your head, you're in my dreams. Like it's the whole atmosphere of the song is so good. And again, it almost feels like the duo that helped Stevie, Bob and Cecil. I feel like I mispronounced their names, but
is Robert Bob Margouleff and Malcolm Cecil. That's
Malcolm Cecil. There you go. Yes, those two geniuses. It's almost like you're getting one last tour de force of the partnership with Stevie, where you hear these synths and these sounds that sound so essential to Stevie's aura on these records. And that song just kind of surrounds you with it. It's like, wow, this is great. And then of course having one of the most angelic voices ever. Like, come on.
He was just, and there, I mean, we'll talk more about Minnie's second appearance on this album in a minute, but I did want to talk about Bird of Beauty. And this was another flex because Stevie does the entire second verse in Portuguese.
I remember I was thinking about this when I was listening to it. You talked about, I think, how much you love Stevie singing in other languages. And I think it's such a great credit to Stevie being such a world citizen, like someone who is so culturally aware that I'm not just going to appreciate different sounds. I'm going to sing these words in other language to show you that I am truly a citizen of the world. I think you talked about that when we did Intervisions, and I was just like, wow, you made that observation. So cool. And I think I just read Sergio Mendes wrote those lyrics for him or translated to Portuguese.
I believe that's who it was.
That is another flex. First of all, I love Sergio Mendes. Like if you've never listened to Sergio Mendes records, find a couple, listen to them. They're great. Just throwing that out there. But he's able to get Sergio Mendes, who is, again, a star in his own right, to help translate these lyrics. And he's able to sing them so fluidly. Like, come on, man. Like Stevie is just like showing you, I can do a lot of things that probably the average pop star cannot do.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting about Bird of Beauty, because I mean, if you're not familiar, I mean, the song is basically about, go take a trip somewhere, go see the world. And, living life can be such a thrill, unfound in white and red and yellow pills. If you take a chance and ride, the bird of beauty of the sky. Do, 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 do. I think Minnie's on there too. She was all over this record, man. Stevie was preparing her for the stardom that was to come.
Actually, you know what? I'm not sure. Well, actually, no, she's not on that record. She's on another song here. But you have Denise Williams, who is all over this record. And is going to be a pop star in her own right a decade later. So again, Stevie has a way of finding talent, identifying them, and allowing them to, use him as a liftoff. And in 10 years, Denise Williams is going to have a pop hit just along with Stevie Wonder. I believe Let's Hear It for the Boy was a pop hit in 84. So was Part-Time Lover.
Part-Time Lover was 85, but I
85.
think
okay.
But I just called to say I love you was 84. And even though that's the Stevie song that but it's still a pop, it was still a pop hit in 1984. That's the 80s. That's the 80s in a nutshell. When a song that Stevie Wonder fans kind of want to sort of ignore is one of the biggest songs of the 80s. That's the 80s in a nutshell.
Exactly. But for the purpose of this discussion, it just shows how Denise Williams, who is a great singer in her own right, gets a chance to shine on the Stevie record. She's all over this record doing background vocals. And then 10 years later, she's competing with Stevie for like charts, being on the charts. Like, how cool is that?
It's incredible. And we I want to get to this opener real quick before we get to everything else. But Smile Please, I think if you listen to Smile Please, it sounds sort of like a distant cousin to You Are the Sunshine of My Life.
Yes.
And it's like, Stevie is trying to tell this woman that, you're not going to be, don't mess your face up because a frown can only hide the beauty that you are. Love within, you'll begin smiling. There are brighter days ahead. So it's not only him talking to a woman, it's almost like him talking to the world in general. Like, okay, there's a lot to be miserable about because, it's 1974. We're in the middle of, Watergate. There was a gas crisis to where my mother explained it to me was you could only go get gas on the day of the week that the last number of your tag was on. And if you had anything above 7, you had to wait a couple extra days.
Wow.
Like if you had 8, 9, or 0, you had to wait a couple extra days to go get gas. So
Wow.
people couldn't even put gas in their cars in 1974. Vietnam was just finally about to be over. Nixon's doing whatever he's doing. So Stevie's like, all right, yeah, it's cold out here, man, but just smile every once in a while.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. By the way, that context is important, I think, because it adds to kind of the depressiveness of this record. Like, it, to me, when I heard this record, this is kind of like when I first heard it, I realized, oh, this is not going to be some happy Stevie record. Like, it's kind of like pushing through. It's like there are brighter days ahead. You have hope, but there's heaviness right now. Like, and I did write down. It does remind me of Sunshine of Your Love, especially with the Fender Rhodes in there. But it's not the joy of Sunshine of My Love. It's not Sunshine of, You Are the Sunshine of My Life. It's not the joy. Like, it's funny. That record came out in 72, right, CJ?
Yep.
So 2 years later, Stevie is in a much more contemplative, sadder state. It's almost like a different world. And it just kind of shows you kind of what he was going through, as we talked about. I mean, it's amazing that here's someone who was 2 years ago singing You Are the Sunshine of My Life, everything is great, and then Smile Please, like just trying to, come on, just push through, or just, we're all going through it. Like the contrast, it's it's tough, man. Stevie was kind of like letting you know this is going to be a tough record.
Yeah, and to get to one of the toughest, I mean, the two toughest songs on the album are back to back, because we'll talk about the one of the more, I mean, Stevie could do a breakup song now. I mean, we talked about this on Blame It on the Sun when we were doing Talking Book, but it seems like he's still trying to come to grips with him and Sarita's partnership from a romantic standpoint being over. Because It Ain't No Use is probably one of the saddest songs he's ever done. Like, Blame It on the Sun and It Ain't No Use are neck and neck in the sad Stevie catalog.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the only song above them, of course, is Never Dreamed You'd Leave in Summer.
Yes.
But It Ain't No Use. This is Denise and Minnie on this record at the same time. And when you hear them both singing, that little hook in the background, bye, bye. Yeah. And Stevie's talking about, we still are young and both have time to find our winter love in spring. But yes, we know the truth. It ain't no use. We are not each other's everything. Because remember, the Stylistics had You Are Everything in 1973. So Stevie was like alluding to other great musicians, just saying, all right, Stylistics had You Are My Everything, but we're so far beyond that. We're not each other's everything. So we just got to say bye.
Yeah, and again, I think it speaks to his maturity that it could have easily been a very kiss-off, bitter record. Like Stevie can be bitter. Stevie can be bitter, but
don't make me get mad and act like a.
You're right. We did that. I remember we did that. Yeah, but there's a mature, again, the maturity to be able to say, you know what, we might as well let this thing go. We've tried. We've gotten to our breaking point. You know what? It's time for us to go. And I think it adds to kind of the sad mood of this record. Like, it's almost dealing with like wanting, desire, trying to get through the hard times, but also letting go. There's a theme in this record about just letting go, saying, hey, this isn't going to work out, but I want it to work out. The world sucks, but I'm also going to be pissed off at it. There's a lot of this sadness and darkness in this record. And I think hearing a song like It Ain't No Use is straightforward, but like, hey, it's time for us to go. And that's funny when we get to like, please don't go, which is almost like, don't leave. But here he's saying, it ain't no use. Like, we've run our course. Like, Stevie's going through a lot of emotions on this record. And I think this song kind of like at the middle is almost like, yeah, man, it's time to go. It's time for us to, go. And then you hear those voices saying bye-bye, like, no. And it's kind of like he accepts it. It's not that he's like trying to fight it. He's accepting it, which is, again, hard to do at 23, 24 years old.
Yeah. And then, of course, it leads into what I can best term as a funeral dirge. They won't go when I go.
Yes.
That to me is like when you said this was sort of like a transformative record, like a record that separates Stevie from the old Stevie. I feel like They Won't Go When I Go is just like him realizing that, yes, I literally was close to death, and whatever is going on with other people, I can't be concerned with it because whenever my time is here, and my time was almost here. People, what people don't understand is, I think what people get mixed up is people thought because it was a log truck. Stevie was in North Carolina going his way to a show at a college somewhere, and it wasn't the log that went through his driver's truck. It was the bed. So what granted, getting hit by a tree log probably wouldn't have been much better, but getting hit by the bed, and this was a metal truck. I mean, this was the 1970s. This is when trucks and cars were still made of metal for the most part.
Right.
So when that comes through and just bam knocks you out and puts you into a coma for weeks at a time, you wake up from that and you realize, yo, I was almost out of here. And so, I mean, yes, I have people around me that love me and care for me, but there are also people that I need to really be kind of like mindful of. And I thought it was interesting because I think it's either a Medium or an old Red Bull Music Academy article. God, we miss Red Bull Music Academy.
Yeah,
that was such a great resource. But Bob and Malcolm said that Stevie was kind of mistrustful of people afterwards. And they were talking about intervision. I mean, they were talking about Fulfillingness First Finale in that regard. So They Won't Go When I Go, sort of, it's a spiritually awakened record, but also feels like paranoia in some respects.
It does. And I need to shout out somebody who's no longer with us. I have a music mentor on Twitter I used to talk to, a good brother named Martin, who's no longer with us. He told me some years ago that Stevie, like you said, he was going through it, not just with the accident and processing it, but he was dealing with, I think, breakups. He was dealing with distrust. He was really at a low point in his life. And he kind of opened my eyes to realize how heavy it was. And that made this song, They Won't Go, just sound even more sad because you're talking about someone who literally is saying, they won't go when I go. Like, how, I don't know how to just kind of like put that into words. Like, if you're at your lowest moment, you're contemplating your own mortality, and you're like realizing, when I die, they're not coming with me. Or when I die, I'm leaving this stuff behind. That is an incredibly dark place to be in. And I remember when I first heard this record, I cried. I cried when I heard it because it was just so painful. I was like, wow, like I've never heard Stevie Wonder sound so pained with this. Like, you think about how he performed this at, you said it's a funeral dirge. He performed it at Michael Jackson's funeral. It gets no clearer than that this is a sad, dark message about death and leaving people behind. Like, he performed it at perhaps one of the most watched funerals we have seen since Princess Diana. And I have not seen that performance since then because obviously that was a very emotional time. But just imagine the pain to be able to go through all this stuff, have your life literally flash before your eyes, and basically come out with a song like this that doesn't sound like anything else he's done. Like, musically, it sounds classical. It sounds like you're listening to like Beethoven or Bach or something orchestral that is like, even though it's not orchestral, but it's like this atmospheric moment of, I got to create this mood of just sadness. Mozart, even like if you're watching like Amadeus and he's doing some really like moody song where he's like going through it. That's what this sounds like. And I think it just really kind of feels unlike anything in the catalog because it is so contemplative of death. It is so sad. You hear his voice as the only voice in the song. You hear these layered vocals like, I'll go. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, he's really kind of like just giving you this meditative, dark place. It's just like, wow. It's such a, I still get chills thinking about it because it's such a very sad song. And by the way, speaking of covers of this song, you talked about Luther's cover of Creepin'. George Michael did a cover of this song on his second solo record, Listen Without Prejudice. And knowing what George Michael was trying to deal with on that record, trying to basically get away from stardom, getting away from the pressure of being this star and trying to come to grips with his own identity as a gay pop star, as a gay man. You hear this, you hear why he loves Stevie so much. He delivers an incredible cover of this song. And so I will go on record and say, as I said, there's no song like this in the Stevie catalog that is sonically, lyrically, and just so blatant about mortality like this song.
It's got to be one of the most important in his catalog. It has to be, because again, for all the reasons that you mentioned. I mean, when you just, I mean, when you just listen to it, there's just so, I mean, the piano in the beginning, and then of course the synths that kind of just sound like really, I mean, the synths are haunting as all get out on that record.
Yes, yes.
It's just like, and then of course he's doing, and like you said, he's doing his own background vocals on this one. He's like, nah, I don't need the angelics for this. Nisi, Minnie, you can sit this one out. I'm gonna go ahead and just go into that deep dark place and just give it all I got. And it's just like one of those records that you listen to and you just sit with, and it's like, damn, this really does come to an end after a while, doesn't it?
No
And
more.
and it's crazy because I mentioned this when I was talking about I took my mom to see Frankie Beverly a couple weekends ago.
Mm-hmm.
And Frankie, God bless him, he's 77 years old. He's retired now. I mean, he doesn't sound like the same Frankie Beverly. And then I thought about it, like, if your parents' favorites are getting older, that means your parents are getting older.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom, Lord willing, turned 70 in September. And I just thought about it, I'm just like, yo, I ain't ready for that. But I guess Stevie's like, we all got to deal with it sometime. And it's just like, whew. But I've just never heard it put in such a way that, you know, and it's still, there's a religious element to it. We're talking about unclean minds mislead the pure. And, you know, there ain't no room for the hopeless sinner that'll never get more than he'll give. He ain't hardly going to give. It's just like, he's again, just his understanding of the human condition and just having that higher conscience that most 20 somethings didn't have at that time. Not just musicians, but just people, period. 20 somethings in 1974. And for him to just be like, you know, all right, man, I saw what the other side is like. I mean, well, I was close to it, but now that I'm here with y'all, it's like, yo, I gotta tell y'all about this. I mean, y'all better get together because they're not good when it's your time. Nobody's coming with you. This is a journey that you will make.
Yes, yes. CJ, you said it so well, man. I mean, I get emotional talking about the song just because it is such a you can feel the pain in it. And I love classical music, and you feel the pain of some of those songs. But this song, it's an incredible song to have in your catalog. It's incredible to write at a time where you should be full of life. But after Stevie had gone through all this, it kind of summarizes to me why this album is so dark and so pain and so much, you know, conflict going on. It kind of sums it up so well. So yeah, it's a tough one to hear.
Yeah, and of course, you know, we already mentioned Bird of Beauty. I mean, he goes from that, then he goes about, I mean, I guess there's the interesting thing about Bird of Beauty, because I mean, yeah, he just talked about death for 3 or 4 minutes, but he's like, while you're here living, go take a trip somewhere. And I'll sing to y'all in Portuguese while we're on the trip. Then he finishes off with Please Don't Go. And I think that's the closest to pre-emancipation Stevie as he would get, because it sounds like an old sounds sort of like Smokey and the Miracles-ish. You know, and when you think about the drums, I think it's the drums, because I mean Stevie, I mean we all know Stevie was an incredible drummer as well. This is, I mean we always think of Stevie Wonder on the keys, but he could drum too. Like, you know the drum part for Superstition, Jeff Beck wrote it, but Stevie played it. And just knowing that Stevie could play drums like that, I mean, you could just hear the difference. Like, it sounds like he went back to 1968 for just a couple minutes. And like you said about, it ain't no use. It's him still trying in some respects. Like, please don't go. Don't say bye. Tell me why, baby. Why you want to make me cry? And it's like, he just even in a breakup state when he's begging for forgiveness, I mean, it's just the hopefulness in his voice, and that in instrumentation that makes that song so great.
Yeah, and I love how straightforward that song is. It's another one of Stevie's gifts where he is, again, we talked about it, he's so straightforward, but it's so like, dang, why didn't I think of saying it like this? When he says like, and I'll do everything you want me to if you promise that you won't leave tonight, because I'll break down and cry a river of tears with just the thought of you not here in my life. That does sound like very Motown-ish, right?
Yeah.
You can imagine David Ruffin saying that or something. But yeah, man, it's a sad song. It's like we said, it reminds you that this record is a very sad record. It's a very dark record, but Stevie is still able to kind of like bring you into this world and leave you feeling just all these emotions. And that song, I mean, like we said, What did we talk about? We talked about how, like, it ain't no use letting go, letting go at the end, but it's saying, please don't go. It's almost like I can admit this is over, but I also don't want it to end either.
Yeah.
And it's almost like the last song on the record kind of telling you, please don't go, don't go. And the record stops. Like, that's whew. And we know what's going to come after this record, of course. But at that point, when you're done with the record, you're not thinking about what's next. You're thinking about, I finished what I need to say. And whew, it's a lot, man. It's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you take a look in Stevie's catalog, and I mean, and you got 50 years of material to go through. It just does not get more, contemplative than that. I mean, there are moments on Intervisions where you think a lot. There are moments on Talking Book as well. Then of course, you get into Songs in the Key of Life, then you really start thinking about things. But I mean, there's still just to give you guys a preview of what we'll probably be talking about in 2026, is that just Stevie was just like, all right, you know what? If there's any doubt that I am the greatest living musician walking among you, because Prince hadn't, come out yet. This was a couple years before For You. But Stevie in 1976 said, okay, I'm just going to put it all to rest. I'm going to, this is the LeBron James silencer record right here. This is what Songs in the Key of Life was. But and people forget, because like Evan said, Stevie was putting out an album every year. There was started in the 70s. There was Signed, Sealed, Delivered in 70. There was Where I'm Coming From in 71. There was Music of My Mind and Talking Book in 72. Intervisions in 73, and of course Fulfillingness First Finale in 74. And then he would not come back again until Songs in the Key of Life for the fall of 1976. So Stevie said, all right, I'm going to go ahead and kind of go off the map for a couple of years, because I just came out this coma. I put this record out. I'm sad. Y'all sad. Let's catch back up in a couple of years. And then of course he comes and drops the tour de force of all tour de forces. But just to kind of, put a bow on this, like, when we talk about the classic period, it seems like this album kind of flies under the radar. Do you think that's because of the moody aspect of it, or is it just, that Songs in the Key of Life and Intervisions being the bookends just kind of like, obscure it in a way?
I think so. I think what comes before it and after it kind of like overshadow this record. I mean, for me growing up, I never really heard anything off this record. I never heard You Haven't Done Nothing. It's almost like I don't want to say stepchild of the classic run, but it does feel like the moodiness, the darkness. That's the record you don't really hear a lot about. You don't even hear about it when you look at like all-time great records. Usually you see Intervisions, you see Talking Book, you see Key of Life. The canon of Stevie Wonder has always reflected these high points of his catalog. But you don't really hear about the dark. You don't hear about this record, even though this record won Album of the Year. You can feel how you feel about the Grammys, but again, it won Album of the Year and it probably deserved it, but you look at it and there's not a lot that you can like point to and say, yeah, you can enjoy this song about Richard Nixon. Yeah, Boogie on Reggae Woman. Like, I remember getting a greatest hits CD of Stevie Wonder in the 90s. I don't recall if Boogie on Reggae Woman or You Haven't Done Nothing is on that record. And I'd have to go look and see. But I don't know if it is, because again, to me, that makes it more interesting, because this record is probably one that you wouldn't go to right away. It's kind of like Sly Stone, there's a riot going on. Sly and the Family Stone, riot going on. Although that record is obviously canonized a lot better than Fulfillingness First Finale, because everyone usually says, oh, that's the high point of Sly and the Family Stone. It's a darker turn. But that darker turn with Stevie doesn't get as praised nowadays. So I think that's probably why, is that it's not what we associate with Stevie Wonder.
Yeah. And so, my final thoughts on it before we sign off, with everything Evan said, it's like, when you think about Intervisions and how that album just, and granted, maybe the accident, kind of had people worried that they were never going to hear Stevie again. So they just held on to that record, but thankfully that wasn't the case. And then of course, Songs in the Key of Life is just him flexing for an unseen amount of songs on it. I had to go back, but as many songs as on that album is just Stevie like, all right, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and let y'all know that I am the greatest right now. Fulfillingness First Finale, I mean, you can't have that. I mean, it's almost like, to me, it's almost like, and these are the last two people you would think would be into a comparison, but these are two of my favorites. So when I think about Stevie, I think about, when you think about him and DMX, and I'm gonna make a very interesting parallel here.
Go ahead with it. Go ahead.
Because It's Dark and Hell is Hot. I mean, yeah, that was a dark record, but there were still some high points on that album. And then there was X. Of course, that gave us his legend song. For those of us who have, Evan and I are sports writers, we've heard this song probably countless times during the, many years we've been in this industry. People have played Party Up, the radio version, at just about every sporting event you can imagine.
Everywhere.
But Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Blood was in between, and then there was X and It's Dark and Hell is Hot. And Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Blood was sparse, very dark, very emotional. I mean, Slippin' is on there, for crying out loud. So Stevie's They Won't Go When I Go and Slippin' from DMX are kissing cousins. So you guys are probably thinking, are you on drugs or something? But no, when you think about the DMX Stevie connection in that regard, when you have They Won't Go When I Go and Slip, and you just listen to those records back to back, you're gonna feel feelings that you didn't expect to feel. And I think that's what's special about those two records, 25 years apart and worlds apart in terms of, personality and different things of that nature. But overall, Fulfillingness First Finale, I mean, that's why we're here. We wanted to give this record the love it deserves, because no, it's not Intervisions, it's not Talking Book, it's not Songs in the Key of Life, but it's just as important as any other Stevie record during that time period. And it was my pleasure and privilege to have my good brother Evan Barnes come on and talk with me about it. So if the good people want to find you and your work, where can they find you?
Before I get to that, man, that is a heck of a job you did comparing Slippin' to They Won't Go When I Go. Bravo. Bravo.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
By the way, one of probably my favorite DMX song, just to point that out. That is incredible. Anyway, you can find me on Twitter, if you're still on X, Twitter, whatever they want to call it, Evan_B. You can read my stuff at Newsday. Obviously, it's going to be more basketball than music, but you can read my stuff at Newsday. I guess Instagram, ebarnes4, if you want to find me on Instagram. But, man, always a pleasure talking with you. You are, again, one of the smartest music brothers I know, one of the smartest music people that I know. And I love chopping up with you because you and I relate so well. I learn from you, you learn from me, and we have fun, man. And I guess we'll do this again, Lord willing, in 2 years for Key of Life.
Yeah, I mean, there's also other stuff there's all those music we can talk about too. So I mean, we'll probably connect before then, but we'll definitely do Stevie in 2026. Make no mistake about it. So
you're gonna make me beg for him, like, please, CJ, can I talk about something else? Like, I love Stevie, but can we do something else?
Man, there's so much else we can talk about. I mean, you ain't got a bag. I mean,
we can look. What's coming up? The anniversary for this movie,
40.
The movie starring this man, Prince. Purple Rain.
And you know what's funny? I have a Purple Rain T-shirt. I just chose not to wear it today. I probably should have.
You know what?
We'll just wear them again when we do if we do a Purple Rain perspective. We'll just wear them then.
Sounds good, man. Hey, always appreciate you, brother.
All right, appreciate you, Evan. And thank y'all for watching this edition of the Chris Stevens Writes YouTube channel. Greatly appreciate your time as always. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe and tap the notification bell so you're notified of all the new content that drops on this channel. All the contact information for yours truly, no OJ, will be in the description below. So thank y'all for watching. Until the next time we speak, y'all be good or be good at it.